I was elbow deep under the hood of my '78 El Camino, replacing the water pump, when the phone buzzed in my pocket 3 times. I let it go the first 2, but the third made me curse under my breath. I wiped my hands on a rag covered in grease and dirt and yanked the phone out. "Mr. Whitaker, this is Alan Dresner, a state attorney for your Uncle Gerald Stroud." My whole body went cold. Gerald wasn't just some relative I saw at holidays. He practically raised me after my old man bailed when I was 11. The only one who ever gave a damn when the rest of the family acted like I didn't exist. I leaned back from the engine, heart thudding. "I'm sorry to tell you this. Gerald passed away in his sleep last night." I just stood there, phone to my ear, staring at the engine block like it could give me answers. The scent of coolant and cut grass hit me all at once. Gerald was gone. Quick note: before we keep going, tell us which city or country you're watching from. "He left instructions to contact you first, before anyone else," Dresner continued. "There's a letter he wrote, a personal one. He asked that it be read before the funeral. Can you come by the office today?" "Yeah," I said without thinking. "I'll be there in an hour." I hung up, then just stood there, not moving. My legs felt locked. I looked over at the car, that El Camino, the one Gerald helped me fix up when I was 20. We'd rebuilt the transmission together in his garage. He taught me how to flush the radiator with a garden hose and a 5-gallon bucket. I remember him cracking a beer open after and saying, "If you ever sell this thing, I'll haunt your ass." His voice hit me like a gut punch. "When I go, don't let him dress me up like a mannequin." Classic Gerald. No suits, no fake speeches. He wanted the truth, even if it made people squirm. I tossed the rag on the ground and grabbed my keys off the workbench. I didn't even change my shirt. Just got in the truck and headed for downtown Tulsa. Gerald wanted me first for a reason. Whatever was in that letter, I was about to find out. And I had a feeling it was going to blow the whole family wide open. Dresner's office sat on the 23rd floor of some downtown tower I'd never noticed before. Whole place smelled like expensive leather and wood polish, thick walnut desk, matching chairs, walls full of degrees and those framed motivational quotes that don't mean jack unless you're billing by the hour. I felt like I was sitting in a movie that didn't belong to me. Dresner was polite, too polite. Clean suit, slick hair, that careful lawyer voice like he was used to telling people they weren't getting what they wanted. But I guess that wasn't today. He slid 2 envelopes across the desk, one legal size and white, the other cream-colored with Nate written in bold blue ink. "That's Gerald's handwriting," I muttered, picking it up. "Yes," Dresner said. "He wrote it 3 months ago. Told me it was meant for you alone. The other letter is different. We'll get to that." I didn't wait. Tore open the personal one, careful not to smudge the ink with grease still on my fingers. First line hit me hard. "If you're reading this, I'm finally out of time." My throat tightened, but I kept going. Gerald's voice came off the page like he was sitting right across from me with a cigarette in one hand and a bottle of Shiner in the other. Every sentence was him, sharp, plain, no sugar. He said he'd spent too long holding in truths that should have come out years ago. Said he was leaving everything to me. Everything. Stroud Contracting, the ranch, his investments, the company trucks, even the old Airstream out by the tool shed. But then I hit the part that made my stomach knot up. "There's a second letter. It needs to be read out loud at my funeral, with every family member present. No skipping, no editing." I looked up at Dresner. "Is this real?" I asked. "Like legal?" "It's real," he said. "Gerald left very specific instructions. I've reviewed them personally. The condition is binding." He tapped the white envelope with one finger. "And just how big is this estate?" "Liquid and assets combined, 71.8 million." I sat back like I'd been punched. The number didn't even sound real. Gerald never acted rich. He still drove a '97 F-150 with a cracked dash and duct tape on the seat. "You telling me I get none of it unless I read this mystery letter in front of the whole family?" "That's correct." I picked it up. It wasn't sealed, just labeled. "To be opened by Nathan Whitaker, and read aloud upon my death." "Did you read it?" "No, Gerald placed it in his gun safe himself. Said only you would know how to find it." "Of course. The old Winchester safe in his den, the one he used to show me when I was a kid, like it was a treasure chest. Taught me the combo like it was part of growing up." I looked back down at Gerald's letter. Last line chilled me. Some will call it revenge. I call it justice. I folded it slowly and slid it back into the envelope. What if I say no? Dresner didn't even blink. Then the entire estate is dissolved. The assets go into a holding trust to be redistributed. You get nothing. I stared out the window at the skyline, sun catching on glass, too bright for how cold my insides felt. Gerald knew exactly what he was doing. This wasn't just a test, it was a time bomb, and now it was ticking in my hands. I left downtown and drove straight out to the ranch. The closer I got, the quieter everything felt, like the land itself was holding its breath. Gerald's place sat just off a dirt road lined with pecan trees, same as it always had. Clean, quiet, old school. He kept it simple. White siding, green tin roof, wraparound porch. Max, his old black lab, lifted his head when I pulled up. One bark, then he flopped back down on the porch like nothing had changed. That dog never wasted energy. Gerald used to say, "Max is smarter than most people I know." I walked through the front door, and it smelled like cedar and pipe smoke. Everything was still in its place. Boots lined up by the door, the hat rack holding 2 sweat-stained ball caps, a calendar still stuck on last month. For a second, I half expected Gerald to come around the corner in his flannel shirt and ask why I hadn't brought beer. But it was just me. I went straight to the den. The mounted whitetail rack hung on the wall, right above the gun safe. Same safe Gerald showed me when I was 13, grinning like he was letting me in on government secrets. My fingers didn't even hesitate. 7, 13, 28, his wedding date. The dial clicked into place like muscle memory. The door swung open with a groan. Inside, stacks of folders, some cash, his service pistol wrapped in a rag. And there it was. A panel on the left side, just where Gerald had told me years ago. I pressed the hinge, and the false wall popped forward with a soft snap. Behind it sat a thick envelope, to be read at my funeral. The handwriting was his, bold and steady. I lifted it out. Heavier than I expected, too heavy for just paper. I felt the corners of photographs, maybe documents, maybe both. Every part of me wanted to tear it open, just rip the seal, get it over with. But I didn't. Gerald had been deliberate with everything his whole life. If he wanted this read at the funeral, he had a reason. I shoved it inside my jacket pocket before I could second-guess myself. Then something caught my eye on the desk. A photograph in a frame I swear hadn't been there the last time I visited. Gerald stood next to a man I didn't recognize. Rough-looking guy, maybe mid-40s in the picture. They were in front of a beat-up worksite trailer with faded lettering across the side. Stroud and Reeves Contracting. Reeves? I'd never heard that name tied to the company. Ever. The man had one arm slung over Gerald's shoulder, both of them covered in dirt like they'd just come off a job. They weren't posing for clients. They looked like 2 men who'd built something together. I picked it up, studied it. No date on the back, no names scribbled, just that logo. "What the hell did you hide all these years, Gerald?" I asked the empty room. Max let out a low whine from the porch, as if he'd heard me. I put the photo back, grabbed the envelope tighter, and headed out. Whatever secrets Gerald locked up in that safe, they weren't staying buried much longer. I didn't sleep that night. The envelope stayed on the nightstand next to Gerald's old alarm clock, buzzing in my brain like it had a heartbeat. Every time I closed my eyes, I saw that photo, Stroud and Reeves, and wondered what the hell kind of bomb Gerald had buried in there. The next morning kicked off the 3-day circus. First, Rob, 7 calls in 2 days. I answered the first one. "Hey man, sorry about Uncle G," he said, all fake sympathy. "So, any word on the will?" "Nope." "You sure? I heard from Lydia." Click, that was all he got. Next, Aunt Lydia. Left a voicemail so smug it made my teeth hurt. "I hope you're not taking advantage of a sick man's trust. Gerald was old, not stupid." I didn't call her back. She didn't deserve a response. Gerald had left every funeral detail written out in a spiral notebook, like a grocery list. Wanted brisket, not ham. Wanted John Fogerty, not hymns. And he was real clear. No damn suits. Anyone shows up in a tie, send him home. I followed it all. I owed him that much. Saturday came fast. Cars lined up down the road by 10 a.m. Relatives I hadn't seen since high school. Old co-workers, former foremen. Hell, even the mayor of Tulsa showed up. Over 200 people in total, and not one of them had a clue what I was about to do. That morning, I met with Dresner one last time. He was waiting outside the tent in a plain black blazer, one of the only ones not breaking Gerald's no suits rule. "You sure you're ready?" he asked. I nodded. "Doesn't matter if I'm ready." He looked me over and said, "Gerald's last words to me about all this were, 'Nate will know what to do with the truth.'" I didn't say anything back, just walked off toward the porch, envelope in hand. The oak tree loomed in the distance just past the smoker and rows of folding chairs. I could already feel their eyes waiting. I stepped under the tent just after noon. Sun blazing, humidity thick enough to chew. Over 200 people packed into rows of metal folding chairs. Family on the right, everyone else on the left. Former employees, local politicians, some guys from the contractors union. Gerald brought all kinds together. Respected, feared, never ignored. I wore jeans, boots, and his old leather jacket. The one with the rip in the right elbow and a busted zipper. Felt more right than a tie ever could. People were whispering as I walked up front. I didn't waste time. Just grabbed the mic off the stand and cleared my throat. "My name's Nate Whitaker. Most of you knew Gerald one way or another. Some of you better than others. Some of you thought you knew him." They got quiet real fast. I glanced down at the envelope in my hand, the wax seal still unbroken. I looked up. He asked me to read something, with every family member present, no exceptions. If you're blood, or married in, or both, listen up. I broke the seal, pulled out a thick stack of typed pages and 3 photographs. Deep breath. Then I started. "My name is Gerald Stroud, and the man beside me in these photos is Roy Reeves, co-founder of Stroud and Reeves Contracting, the company I built my name on." I held up the first photo. Gerald and the same man from the one in his den, both holding a blueprint and grinning like kids who just bought their first truck. Murmurs started instantly. Rob leaned over to whisper something to Aunt Lydia. Uncle Wayne stood up in the back, arms crossed, face going red. I kept going. In 1989, Roy died in a site accident. A month later, a legal agreement surfaced, transferring Roy's share of the company to me. That signature was a forgery. Gasps now. A few people turned in their chairs. I looked right at Wayne. "Forged by Wayne Stroud, my own brother." I read on. "For 30 years I carried that lie. I made money on it, built power on it, but I also spent 30 years making quiet amends, sending monthly checks to Roy's daughter, Ava Reeves, under the table. She never knew who they came from, never asked, just cashed them and kept living her life." The second photo showed Roy shaking hands with a man in a suit, some kind of bank deal. I held it up. "I've done a lot of things I can't undo, but this I can fix, in part." When I read her name, a woman stood up near the back, sharp jawline, long dark hair, early 40s, jeans and a denim jacket. She stared straight at me like she already knew what was coming. I nodded toward her. "She's here today. Ava Reeves." Silence dropped over the tent like someone pulled the air out of it. "She deserves to know the truth. She deserves her share. I've amended my estate. Ava Reeves will receive a 25% ownership stake in Stroud Contracting, restitution for what was taken from her family." Ava didn't cry, didn't flinch, just folded her arms and stood there, rock solid. I finished the last page. "The controlling share will go to Nathan Whitaker. I've taught him what I could. He knows what this company should be, what it was supposed to be. I'm trusting him to rebuild it on the foundation it was meant to have." I lowered the paper, looked at the crowd. Nobody moved. You could hear the wind flap the edge of the tent. Ava didn't flinch. Even after the last line, she stood there like a statue while the rest of the crowd cracked around her. Wayne had already stormed off halfway through the reading, shoving through chairs and muttering curses under his breath. Rob looked green. He wouldn't even look at me. Aunt Lydia clutched her pearls like I'd just confessed to murder. But Ava? She waited. And when the tent finally emptied out and the food line died down, she walked right up to me under the oak tree. "You didn't have to read that?" she said. "Yeah, I did." She looked out across the pasture, squinting into the sun. "I always knew something was off. My mom wouldn't talk about it, but my dad, he never would have walked away from what he built, not unless someone made him. I didn't know what to say to that, so I didn't try." She turned to me. "Thank you for not burying it again." That night, after everyone was gone and the tent crew packed up, I got an email from Aunt Lydia. Subject line, Immediate concern regarding fabricated letter. The message was pure poison. She called it slanderous, claimed Gerald was not in his right mind, and told me to destroy the letter for the family's sake. I didn't even reply, just forwarded it to Dresner and blocked her number. Next morning, Wayne filed for an injunction to freeze the estate. Dresner crushed it in court in less than a day. Judge called the filing insulting to the deceased's clear wishes. 2 weeks later, Ava and I sat shoulder to shoulder in Gerald's den. Old man's smell still lingered, smoke, paper, and aftershave. We were knee-deep in company records, contracts, payroll files, some of it going back to the early 90s. Ava flipped through a dusty ledger and said, "You think this company can survive this mess?" I shrugged. "If it doesn't, we'll build something better." She set the book down, leaned back in the chair. "I'm not here for a payout. If that's what you think, I don't," I cut in. "And you're not getting one." Her eyes narrowed until I added, "You're getting a seat at the table." That cracked her, just a bit. She smirked. "Good. Because I'm not here to cash checks. I'm here to build." I nodded. She didn't blink. We got back to work. We filed the paperwork that same week. New name, new logo, new letterhead, Stroud Reeves Engineering. Ava came up with the name, said if we were going to move forward, we had to put both names on the door, not just for the press, but for the people who built the damn thing. I agreed before she even finished the sentence. She took the lead on sustainable projects, solar retrofits, stormwater planning, green certifications. That was her world. I stayed in operations, budgets, crews, deadlines, steel, and sweat. The divide worked, clean and clear. The company didn't just survive, it bounced. Sure, we lost a few clients after the story broke. Some didn't like the drama, some didn't like the name change, but most of them stayed. And a few, the old school ones who respected grit more than gloss, said Gerald finally earned their full respect by coming clean. One guy from a concrete supplier pulled me aside after a job bid and said, "Your uncle had brass balls. About time someone said what really went down." Every month, I wrote Gerald's name in the company ledger, just like he used to do, and paused for a second. Not long, just enough. He finally told the truth. Not clean, not pretty, but real, and somehow, just in time. I hung the original letter in a black frame on my office wall, right next to the 3 photos. Gerald and Roy with the blueprint, Roy shaking hands with the banker, and the one I found in the den. Both men filthy and smiling in front of that old trailer. People would come in for meetings and glance at them, not sure what they were looking at. Some asked, some didn't. I didn't offer unless they did. Ava came by one afternoon, leaned on the doorframe with her arms crossed. "You ever gonna take that letter down?" she asked. "Nope." She nodded once. Good. That was all we needed to say. We weren't building from scratch. We were rebuilding on truth, and truth holds better than concrete. A year later, I stood on the ranch porch with a mug of black coffee, watching Ava's daughter tear across the front field with her arms out like airplane wings. That same field used to feel endless when I was a kid. Gerald taught me how to throw a football out there, taught me how to cuss when I dropped it. The morning was warm. Air smelled like wet grass and the first cut of hay from the neighbor's pasture. Ava stepped outside and joined me, rolled up blueprints under one arm, hair pulled back in a loose tie. "They're ready for us on site by 9, she said, setting the prints down on the porch railing. "Concrete's coming tomorrow." She nodded toward the hill on the south side, that old flat patch where Roy and Gerald first broke ground on their first trailer office. "That's where the new headquarters is going," she said. I looked out at the spot, same red dirt, same slope, just cleared and cleaned up. "Think they'd be proud?" she asked. "Yeah," I said. "Not because we're doing it big, because we're doing it right." She smiled, soft and tired, and followed me through the side yard where Gerald's rose garden still bloomed. Not many people knew he was into roses. Big calloused hands digging in soft dirt like it meant something. He used to say, "You need beauty somewhere, even in the dirt." I spotted the Queen Elizabeth bush, his favorite, tall, mean-looking thing with the ass light pink blooms and thorns like nails. He used to say it was tougher than it looked. I knelt, clipped one bloom with my pocket knife, and handed it to Ava. "He left more than land," I said. "He left the truth, and a second chance." She took the rose gently, nodded once. "To do it right, That night, I was digging through the bottom drawer of Gerald's old desk, looking for receipts, when I knocked over the brass ashtray he always kept by the window. Taped underneath it was a folded piece of paper, yellowed at the edges. His handwriting was sharp and clean. "You did good, kid. Real good. Make it better than I did." Gee, I didn't tear up. I didn't say anything. Just sat back in the old leather chair and let it land. Not everything in life gets wrapped up clean. People die. Mistakes get made. The truth shows up late. But sometimes, if you don't blink, you get a moment where the whole mess finally makes sense. Gerald didn't ask me to burn it all down. He asked me to fix it, and I did.